West of the Rockies, why care? How can we prepare?
A few of their machines, radios, throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We're fighting for our lives. Must survive. 5 years. Air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube. Well, not Twitter anymore, guys. Twitch, Odyssey, usually Rumble, but we've had all kinds of fun things today. We'll fill you in a minute. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is August the 1st. Wow. 2024, and this is episode 462 of Workshop Radio. How is everyone out there? We'll get back to it in just a minute, but I am back. I had one hell of a vacation. I needed it. I wasn't originally planning on it being a vacation from the podcast, but holy hell did I need it, and I'm glad I took it. So thanks for being here when I came back, guys. So real quick, Facebook's still been giving me issues on streaming over there. Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't. So there's no StreamYard. And I went to go live this evening, and now Twitter says you can only go live if you have a premium account. And for the 1 or 2 views I get over there, ain't gonna happen. So unfortunately, it looks like we are quickly coming down to YouTube for streaming, which is, there's going to be a whole thing at the end of this, and I'm going to talk about YouTube tonight in a good way and kind of where the plans are heading with the podcast, the channel. Nothing bad at all, folks, but let's see who we got in here this evening. So far, we got Jeff Stark, Byron Roberts, Mr. Pippin himself, Beth Emily, Bud. Good to see you guys. It's great to see you. Let's start off this evening with a rule to live by. So I put it through the old randomizer spinning wheel earlier today. I ended up getting rule number 16. I think I'm about halfway through my rules to live by at this point. And number 16, and you guys have heard this one before, I'm sure, and some of you probably live by it. Rule number 16, under promise and over deliver. Guys, that works in business. It works in personal relationships. It works in, I've yet to find a spot, and I'm sure somebody will be like, all right, Tim, here's the example where this is the exception that proves the rule. But I will tell you, every time over, when it comes to property management, I had somebody call me the other day and they said, hey, when's my dishwasher going to be in? And I said, next Tuesday or Wednesday, knowing damn well that I'm probably going to get there on Friday to install it. But if I said Friday and then an emergency came up, I look like the dick. So under promise, over deliver. It's the way you will always have happy customers. And to be honest, it will, and it doesn't mean giving yourself super low expectations or setting the bar so low that you can step over it instead of jump over in it. But it also knows that life happens and that at times you need to, because I am perpetually a yes man. At least I used to be. I was one of those fellers who would absolutely say yes to everything, even if I didn't have time to do it. And I realized one of the easiest ways to get around that was to under promise and over deliver. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I wonder if you guys, anybody out there lives along those lines as well, but it's great to be back. Hey, Kevin Rodriguez, great to see you. Well, it's been 3 weeks, I guess. Well, I missed 3 shows, 3-week routine. So I have a ton of stories that I could pick from, but I kept it down to the normal 4 just so we could, just have a normal kind of everyday this week in prepping. So let's dive in here, folks. And so right now, here we go.
If anyone dies while you are kept in your fallout room, move the body to another room in the house.
The time has come. Stranger than fiction. There we are. I love these intros. And if you guys know Rebecca from Red Flyer Media, she's the one who spruced up a lot of these for me. I started some of these stingers in between transition clips, and she just made them look all the better. At some point this fall, we will have even more. I'm looking forward to introducing one for every one of these segments because if you've noticed, I've expanded to some new segments. So let's dive in. Here we go. If you guys haven't heard this comes from WVTM13.com, and you probably heard it absolutely everywhere. But if there wasn't a vending machine for anything or everything at this point, there definitely is now. Did you guys see this? You can now get gun ammo in a vending machine at an Alabama grocery store. Oh, who doesn't love the Second Amendment? And who doesn't love freedom? There you go. As for how the vending machine style dispenser works, the article says customers choose their ammo and scan their ID. Now it gets a little big brotherish in here, but here's the thing. You get to choose whether you want to do this or not. But either way, so when I first heard this article, I just saw the title and I'm like, you know what? I pictured gumball machines with loose 5.56 in them, and you just put a quarter in. Well, nowadays you wouldn't put a quarter in. Nowadays, I don't know what you'd put in, but up in Canada, at least a toonie to get a round or two. Put it in, turn it, and then just fill your pockets and walk out. It's not quite that simple. So how does the dispenser work? Customer chooses their ammo. They scan their ID. Next, customers will use artificial intelligence, facial recognition. Notice how it used to be called facial recognition, but because AI is a buzzword, we now have to include artificial intelligence in everything to verify that the person they claim to be is the person they are. Legally, we're required to make sure that someone's of legal age in order to use the machine or purchase the ammunition. I mean, that's the law in most places. You have to make sure somebody's of age to purchase ammo. This way, they're actually just removing the intermediary, the middle person. Legally required to make sure someone's of age to use the machine or purchase ammo, said the chief operating officer at American Rounds. And past that, we want to make sure they have a valid ID. Songer believes this AI technology is more secure than a real person checking an ID. Also interesting. However, just like the time that Elon Musk said, look, my windows are bulletproof, and he breaks them, the system isn't perfect because as the CEO was showing off the new technology, demonstrating the checkout process, the verification failed, unable to confirm he was the same person on the license. Oops. So there is that. There are some bugs to work out for sure. And then, of course, they do the people on the street thing, and I'm not going to get into that too much, but they found some people that are like, yes, praise the Lord, you can get free ammo. And then other people are like, oh, I don't like that idea. I think you should have to go. I'm pro Second Amendment, but you really need to have the inconvenience of dealing with a real person in real life, right? So anyway, so in case you're wondering, here's where the company has a ammo machines at the moment. It says the company has one machine in Alabama, 4 in Oklahoma, and 1 in Texas, all freedom-loving states, with plans for another in Texas and 1 in Colorado in the coming weeks. Imagine that. You can go next door, get your free weed, and then get your ammo in the gumball machines. What a great time we live in. Hey, folks. Anyway, I thought this was fun. I thought this would be a great, fun story to come back. What are my thoughts on it? I mean, I'm pro freedom of anything. You know that. And so if a company wants to open up gumball machines that sell ammo, I mean, sure, I want to keep it out of the hands of kids. So I like the idea that it requires an ID, I suppose. But I love it. I think it's great. I think it's the way of the future. I mean, you could theoretically pick up ammo at 2 a.m. if it's a 24-hour grocery store. So there's that. And let's see. Let's pop back into the comments here from our fellow delinquents. And Rachel Brown says, 13 watching and only 6 likes. Show the love, guys. Who always says, slap it like it owes you money? I can't remember anyway. Ryan Pippin says, I actually do have a gumball machine with 9mm inside it. I want to say I wish it had enough that I could fill a gumball machine, but, we'll leave it at that. All right, let's slide on to the next article here, guys. And we're going to shout out to L2 Survive. Good to see you. Great to see you, actually. Next is, for those who don't know, this comes from everythinggp, as in Grand Prairie, Alberta.com. And for those who don't know, the RCMP is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And mounted as in not like stuffed or, up over a fireplace, mounted as in on horses, something like that. They wear this red outfit. Anyway, they don't wear this on a regular basis, but tradition was that they rode horses, so they are now called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They're the closest thing we have to a national police force. They are a national police force, but not every city has them, so we'll leave it at that. I really like this article. I came across this one about 3 weeks ago, but it was worth sharing. It's something really simple that we can all maybe incorporate into our bedtime routine. And I'm not talking about, a rum toddy with, an early bedtime. No, it says Alberta RCMP, or we'll just call them the Popo, the police, remind people of the 9 p.m. routine. And what is that, you might ask? Well, late summer nights with the sun still shining bright in Alberta means people are out and about later. But the Alberta RCMP wants to remind residents to still do their nightly routines. Now, Some folks, it might be getting a little bit darker earlier already, but it is still well past 10 o'clock before the sun goes down here, before it's dark enough that the ne'er-do-well crackheads may or may not do an intrepid inspection of your backyard. And anyway, property crimes tend to rise during the summer months. And in July 2023, there were almost 2,800 reports of theft under 5,000 in Alberta RCMP jurisdictions. We're going to get into this because you guys have heard my story about somebody wanting my generator more than I did. And the reason for that was simply because I didn't follow a proper 9 p.m. routine. The 9 p.m. routine is a movement by police services worldwide to encourage people to follow a nightly checklist to make sure their property is secure before going to bed. I have a similar kind of checklist that I go through. And one of the last things Becky and I do, whoever locks the back door, we put eyes on the garage door, because there's been many times where I have looked out and thought, shit, I didn't close it. Now, I do have an app on my phone that when it's working, I can check if it's opened or closed, but I still like I still like that feeling of being physically putting eyes on it to know. And so that's the big one for me, because that's where somebody's going to pop in, pop out, and run away with something. Do I have cameras all around? Sure I do, but cameras don't prevent anything. They just help you with an insurance claim down the road, or maybe prosecution if need be. All right, here we are. What is this checklist? What does it consist of? And it's pretty simple. Locking your doors at night, even if you live in a small town. Now, question for my American folks, because I don't know if you guys remember, well, I'm sure you do, Bowling for Columbine. And I was quite blown away when I saw that movie for the first time and learned that Americans lock their doors during the day. I don't know anybody anywhere who locks their doors during the day in Canada. I'm sure there are people in Edmonton and, the big cities, but I've yet to meet somebody. As a matter of fact, it's common practice in Nova Scotia, where I grew up, to leave your doors unlocked while you go away on vacation. I'm not really sure why, but it is. Anyhow, so locking your doors at night, even if you live in a small town. Now, that's where I want to get at this, because we totally lock our doors at night, and so does everybody else. I don't know anybody who sleeps with an unlocked door, but during the day, no, doors aren't locked. So throw it in the comments there, guys. If do you lock your doors when you're home during the day, or do you leave them unlocked? Or you don't have to put it up there if you don't want to. Locking your garage or shed. Yep, that's me. I was really bad at that. And the way I have my garage set up is the garage door opens right into the back alley, and then you come in and go through a door into my backyard. There's no actual entrance into the backyard from my fence. So it's something that, I always try to remember to do. Why, you may ask? Well, if you're new here, you might not have heard the story about the beautiful Honda generator, the little EU 2000 I used to have. Beautiful little thing. And when we first moved into the house we were in before this one, the last house we rented before we bought this one, we had a garage door in there that had a messed up garage door spring. And it took two people to lift it and get it up into place. And then once it got up into place, I would have to put clamps on it to make sure it didn't fall down and decapitate a small child. Yeah, not safe. I get it. And so it was a real pain in the ass to open and close. So I would leave it open all day and then close it at night. Well, one evening, I never even thought. I left it open, left the light on in the garage, just like, you know what it was like? A lit up garage with an open door in the middle of the night is to a crackhead what a pie sitting on a window ledge to Bugs Bunny was. That's absolutely what it was. Simple as that. I was stupid. I left it unlocked. I went out in the morning, and there were 4 perfect little rubber footprints in the dust on my shelf where that beautiful generator used to be. There you go. So don't do it. Lock your garage, lock your shed. Booby trap. No, I didn't say booby trap. I'm just kidding. Remove all keys from vehicles and locking the door. Securely store any off-highway vehicles. Another great idea. In the country, folks leave things out. I get it. I know it is what it is, but we don't do that in the town here. Consider installing a home alarm. If you already have one, set your alarm before going to sleep. Ensure all yard tools, recreation equipment is safely stored, preferably in a locked garage, shed, or something else. So there you go. That is what it is. I mean, it's just simple things. And to be absolutely honest, it's not really anything you have to run around and do. It's just something that you have to be cognizant of, and you can say, did I do this? Did I do that? Did I do this? Okay. I use Google Calendar now. I've become a huge addict on Google Calendar for things like put your garbage bins out Tuesday night so that they're out there for Wednesday morning. So you could easily put something like, did I lock the garage door on there, or whatever it happens to be. So yeah, just a simple 9 p.m. routine, and your mileage may vary. Adjust for time zones, folks. But either way, have a good nighttime kind of routine for you. All right, let's go back over to the comments here. And I'm going to say the state you guys live in. I hope that's okay, just to kind of give us all some ideas. Oh, the folks that I know, sorry. But anyway, this comment, I'm just not going to put it in the audio. Florida, locked always. Next, Kentucky, unlocked when home during day, locked at night. I know the general vicinity of where you live, and I'm not going to say it out loud. Our doors auto-lock. There are cameras everywhere, and my pistol is always within arm's reach. And this one here, I don't lock my door all day. I do at night, but I leave my car keys in the car during the day and night and don't lock it at all in Texas. I'm going to say that I'm pretty bad with that too during the day around here. I know I shouldn't do that, but it is just a country thing that I've never been able to get out of the habit of. And you guys will be able to slap me when my nice army green truck runs off on itself. But it's pretty common to leave our keys in the truck during the day here. At night is when crime happens. It doesn't mean that it won't happen. I'm just saying. Anyway, and outdoor cameras are my next purchase. I love having them. I can sit here right now. Actually, I have one camera out that I need to investigate to see what happened. I think it's behind here. But I chose hardwired cameras at first because I loved them. I bought them on Amazon. We're talking 4.5 years ago now. And I bought 4, and then I bought a 5th one to upgrade so that I kind of have the perimeter of the house all decked out. And it works really, really well. And so I have one for the backyard, one for the back door, one for the driveway heading out, one for the driveway heading in, and then one for the front of the house. I have a blind spot in my backyard, well, my fenced in area, but that has 6-foot fence all the way around with no access from outside. And there's nothing stealable, and nobody can get into the house without having to come into range with one of the cameras. Now, one of the blind spots I did have was on the back of my garage, like my garage looking down the alleyway. So if anybody broke in there, I wouldn't have footage of it. So I picked up another one of those Wi-Fi cameras. And I got to tell you, folks, I love those Wi-Fi cameras. I got another review coming up on one a company sent me recently. It's been great. I have 2 on our daycare down the road and 1 on my workshop. And it's held up really, really good. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I do like cameras. I really wanted to say that I was still a fan of the hardwired cameras, but I got to tell you, those Wi-Fi cameras have been a godsend. I've run them for I would say it's been a full year at the daycare without any issues. They're just a solar panel about, 8 by 8 inches maybe, and a Wi-Fi connection. Literally no holes, no wires to drill anything. I enjoy it. So one step closer says I lock doors all the time. And Byron says keys stay in work truck all day outside in town. I know. Small town versus city. If I have time later on, we'll chat a little bit about some serious time I spent in the city recently and a couple of interactions I had that one was my fault and one was my nephew, who was the country mouse who first, you know what? Let's talk about it right now. Instead of just teasing it, just do it. So 2 things, guys. We just spent the better part of 5 days in Edmonton, and the West Edmonton Mall is gorgeous. It's beautiful. It has the world's largest indoor wave pool. It's the 2nd biggest mall in North America. A lot of fun stuff there. We couldn't get a place to stay in the mall adjacent hotel this time. So we stayed at the mall across the street hotel. It's also called the West Edmonton Mall, but it's called the Inn. I did some research ahead of time, and they said park underground if you can, because the outdoor parking tends to get broken into and it's not a great neighborhood. But all you have to do is cross the road. So a crosswalk, just a very busy intersection. As long as you wait, you're good. All right. So anyway, I get parking underground. We had some real issues with that hotel. The bed was nice. The room was nice, but the elevator broke on our last day there, and we had no hot water for 14 hours in our room. Anyway, I was polite about it. We didn't get in a fight or anything. We got a small refund. We won't stay there again, but that's neither here nor there. So the next day, or the day before that, I'm in the West Edmonton Mall, and I have my girls with me, and I'm always kind of on edge. I'm always doing the situational awareness and watching people. And I see this crackhead lady coming at me, and she's kind of on a mission. And she says, "Excuse me." And I was like, okay, that's kind of rude. And then she says, "Get the fuck out of my way." And of course, actually, she didn't say it that loud. She said it just loud enough where she's like, there won't be any consequences for what I say. And before I knew what I was doing, I said, well, that's a nice attitude to have around us. Why did I do that? I don't know what's happened to me over the years, but sometimes I just won't let people slide by. And she gets about 10 feet past us, and it clicks in that, hey, somebody just confronted me on my assholishness. And she comes around and she comes right back and she's within 2 feet of me and she's cussing and swearing and hollering at me. And I'm thinking, why did you do that, Tim? Why did you say that? I shouldn't have done it. So stupid. And Becky was telling me afterwards, she's like, she was prepared to jump the lady if she tried to hit me. But anyway, I shouldn't have done it, folks. So sometimes preparedness is about keeping your damn mouth shut, even when somebody says something you don't like. So anyway, that evening, my awesome little nephew, Nick, he came out. So we just had my sister, my mom, and Nicholas out here. Mom was out 2 years ago. Nick and my sister had never been outside of Nova Scotia in their life. He came out. He was doing really good. I said, dude, you've never been in a city, and this is a serious city. Stay with me all the time. Yep. Okay, no problem. And one thing you don't do in Edmonton is jaywalk. I mean, you will get hit so friggin' fast, you won't even know it hit you. And we're at this busy intersection, and it just so happens that there's no cars within like ear distance or eye distance. We all stop because it's a red light for the crosswalk, and he just keeps on a trucking. And he gets about 3/4 of the way across before we realized what the hell had happened. And we hollered at him, and he froze right there because we saw a car just barreling down on him, and they weren't going to stop. And so he had to pick up his ass and start running. Anyway, so if you ever bring a country mouse to the city, keep a short leash on him. He didn't mean anything by it. I didn't get mad at him, but he scared the living shit out of me, guys. So keep your head up, be aware. And if you bring somebody, they're your responsibility. So there's my crackhead story for this week. Doors locked if I'm not home. Wife's disabled. Never leave keys in the car. Good. And I really should get better at not leaving keys in the car. But I'm just being honest here this evening. So there you go. All right. What do we got next? This is a great story, folks. I love this one. I hope you guys all cracked up when you heard it. Federal judge rules ban on home distilling is unconstitutional. Tonight, we're going to party like it's 1868. This comes from distillerytrail.com. And a couple of weeks ago, you would have saw this story across all the news platforms because it was quite the story. And July 20th, 1868, I'm going to try to do it in my mid-Atlantic accent. The U.S. Congress passed a law declaring, no, I'm done. All right. No person shall use any still, boiler, or other vessel for the purpose of distilling in any dwelling, house, nor in any shed, yard, or enclosed connected with blah, blah, blah. So in other words, you can't make your own liquor. That was the rule since 1868. In 1978, The Joy of Home Brewing was published. No, I'm not kidding. Around that time anyway, just kidding. But the federal government finally changed its tune when President Jimmy Carter signed H.R. 1337, which allowed any adult to produce wine and beer at home for personal use without federal taxation. However, distillation or distilling or making home fuel, folks, was left out of that law. Now, recently, in December of 2023, the Hobby Distillers Association went up against the court. They're kind of a special interest group, and they're like, hey, we need to challenge this law. It's been challenged before. It's never been overturned. And surprise, surprise, on July 10th, a federal court in Texas decided the federal ban on at-home distillation of beverage spirits is unconstitutional. Imagine that. Hasn't happened with marijuana yet. It's been the opposite case in this way, where states have gone, oh, wait, we can legally sell marijuana. But in this case, it's the federal that's saying it's unconstitutional. So in case you're wondering why it's unconstitutional and how it could stay on the books since 1868, the court found that the federal ban on home distilling exceeds the scope of the federal government's limited powers. Kind of nice when the Supreme Court does that. The Texas federal court, sorry. The Constitution's tax power does not allow the federal government to ban home distilling, largely because the ban does not add money into the federal treasury or protect federal tax revenue. The Constitution's power to regulate interstate commerce does not allow the federal government to ban home distilling, largely because the ban neither regulates interstate commerce directly, nor it is related to any large regulatory scheme. There you go. But just so you know, the group is quick to point out that in addition to federal laws, there are tons of state laws governing the making of spirits at home, and the decision does not affect the state's regulatory powers whatsoever. Rachel Brown says, you can make anything you want, you just can't get caught. Right. everything's legal until you get caught. Anyway, yeah. So that brings me, before I forget, to show you the shirt. This is one of my new favorites. I still haven't decided if it's more of a favorite than Killdozer, but John sent me like 7 shirts in the last 4 weeks. So you're going to see some videos, but here's my favorite recently. It's Only Treason. Then you got George Washington with sunglasses on. If you lose. There you go. That's almost like history's written by the victors now, isn't it? So everybody go out there and have a stiff glass of homemade fuel just to celebrate this news. Hey, Rachel Brown says you can make anything you want, just don't get caught. One Step Closer says some kinfolk have been making their own forever. Just some good old boys. Yeah, I'm not singing that. There you go. So, and the next story is a little dystopian. I hope it's not too dark. No, anyway, this comes from The Atlantic or theatlantic.com. And I had to use archive.ph. If you want to check out that site, it's great. If you aren't interested in subscribing to certain news outlets, things are behind a paywall, you want to read a story, or you just want to see an old version of the story, you can check out archive, archive.ph. So The Atlantic says, the golden age of the supermarket is ending. I would say something that started in the late 50s, I guess, and really hit it big in the 80s with the malls and that sort of thing. This is an interesting thought experiment or an interesting conversation piece in here. There's going to be a lot about climate, a lot about changing weather, and no matter how you want to look at it, the weather has been bad recently for certain things, and you're going to have localized ecological disasters, lots of different things that have been affecting the supply chain, as we know. Wherever you stand on your belief of it, I leave that up to you. But here we go. Grocery stores defy seasons and geography to assure shoppers that they can have anything they want anytime. When they say that, I picture those 1950s lunchtime diners that have all these doors that you can just open up and pick out whatever food you want. That's kind of what I'm picturing here for whatever reason. For a moment last year, those promises no longer seem to hold up. The egg case at my local supermarket in New York City was stripped bare. Bird flu had decimated chickens across the country. Well, I would actually say that killing birds that had been exposed to bird flu actually decimated the population. Americans hoarded whatever eggs they could find, sometimes paying up to $18 a carton. Well, another reason I've been freeze drying a ton of scrambled eggs recently, but not the only reason, just a reason that will help you smooth over these peaks and valleys that's known as inflation or price jumping. Olive oil has more than doubled in the cost in the past 2 years because of drought and bad weather in the Mediterranean. Have shriveled olive groves. So many orange trees in Brazil are diseased and weakened by heat and drought that producers have considered making juice from other fruit. Peanut, sugar, vanilla, and beef, among other foods, have also been in short supply at points over the past few years. Oh, speaking of which, apple pie moonshine. Speaking of distillation, Americans may no longer be able to count on supermarkets that are perpetually stocked with cheap food. The era of grocery abundance is ending, and a more somber one is taking its place. So this is an article. It is definitely comes from a pessimistic worldview, but I think it's worth looking at simply for the fact that there are going to be some shortages. We're going to be dealing with a bunch of shortages that, we've dealt with some in the past. We're going to deal with some in the future. And I think, somebody much smarter than me said that prepping is supposed to make your life better, whether times get tougher, it doesn't, right? And that's what I look at prepping as today. Is it, okay, if you look at a graph where prices spike or supplies dip, well, what prepping can do is shave off those sharp edges at the top and the bottom. It helps you get by. For instance, back in March of 2020, for no reason whatsoever, everyone bought toilet paper. And I don't know why. There was no reason whatsoever why that happened. But so there was a shortage. And we had a year's worth of toilet paper on hand at that time. So guess what? We didn't feel the little spike come up under us and hit us in the butt cheeks. Not at all. And that's what prepping does, is it dulls those sharp points on graphs, and it allows you to go much, much longer than the average Joe when dealing with these shortages. when the idealistic view of the grocery store from the 1950s through the 80s has finally, gasped its last dying breath, I think we'll still be okay. So let's keep sliding on here. Cargo ships stuck in massive seaside traffic jams, some due to low water levels caused by climate change, they say, are holding up food deliveries. Events such as the war in Ukraine may not have any obvious connection to the climate, but they're heaping on top of a baseline. All this means higher prices and patchy supply. It's already happening, but you might not have noticed. And one of the reasons you didn't notice was this big word right here, an I word that Joe Biden loves to use, and it's not idiot, it's inflation, has masked some of the price hikes. So because of that high, once again, that big peak in inflation, people haven't noticed some of these regular price increases that would have been noticed if we were on that steady 2% a year. And now here is a thought that I have heard many times before, and we don't always talk about it, but wealthy nations are generally shielded from the worst effects of crop shortfalls. Lowball says, the food sold in these countries is usually more processed. Ugh. So the cost of raw ingredients is just one component of the overall price. So that means that poorer countries that rely on, basic, the few basic ingredients to make everything are going to feel the pinch even more. And One Step Closer says the West's war on farming hasn't hurt anything either. /sarcasm. You are correct, my friend. Very, very correct. So this is where the new age of grocery shopping begins. Most likely it'll be more of the same of what's happening now, the expert says. The produce you're looking for may be more expensive, or it might be occasionally out of stock or more frequently out of stock. The prices of basic foods such as sugar and flour won't be reliably low. Maybe guacamole will become too costly to be a Super Bowl staple, or burger prices will start to resemble those of steak. I mean, just looking at standard old inflation, when Becky and I got married less than 20 years ago, on our honeymoon, we ended up picking up ground beef for 99 cents a pound. That's Canadian, of course. I haven't seen it for less than $3 a pound, and typically quite a bit more than that for the last few years. But it is what it is now, isn't it? So just a story to think about, something to talk about there, guys. L2 Survive says the price of wood is starting to come down because builders have stopped mid-build because the finished house will not be worth what was put into it. Yep, I've heard that a lot. I've definitely seen a decrease in building supplies. We're never going to see it go back to pre-2020 levels, of course, but that's the way it always goes with price increases, isn't it? So that's the end of Stranger Than Fiction this week. Next, we're going to go on to the Prepper Files, and that is a look at what happened on this date or this week in history, and hopefully mostly from a prepper bent. So this week, actually today in history, August 1st, was the Harlem Riots of 1943. They began on this day, and it's something I'd heard of a little bit in the past, but the reason I shared this one is because there have been race riots recently, within the last 4 years, of course. And once again, they started from a single match strike, from one bad event that spiraled out of control, and people were hurt, people were killed, buildings were damaged. And I just ran a poll on the channel, on the community page, that asked if you lived in the city, the town, or the country. And I'm not going to judge you for living in the city. I get it. But I wouldn't live in the city if I had my choice, I suppose. Now, I get it. Some people don't. Some people want to stay near family. Some people like the lifestyle, whatever. But here you go. Simmering racial tensions and economic frustrations boiled over in New York City on I'm going to say a hot night, but sorry, on the night of August 1st, 1943, culminating as what known now as the Harlem Riot of 43. During an altercation in the lobby of the Braddock Hotel, a white police officer shot a black soldier, Robert Bandy, triggering a massive uprising. Now, a few things happened really quick. There was huge racial tensions in Harlem because in the last 30 years, they went from a predominantly white area to a predominantly black area. There were tons of rules and laws and just overall bad treatment of African Americans, which caused, of course, lots of tension. And then there was a lack of reliable information because as soon as this shooting happened, Story went around that the black soldier was killed. He was not. He was not even mortally wounded or even, seriously injured. He went to the hospital and he was fine a couple of days later. However, as stories go, this is what happened. In either way, they were just looking for a match to light the tinderbox that was Harlem in 1943. Here it is. As a rumor spread that Collins had killed Bandy, crowds assembled near the Braddock and soon began to riot. They turned the rage on local white-owned businesses, leading black-owned businesses to hurriedly post signs announcing their stores were black-owned. 6 black residents were killed, nearly 500 injured, as the NYPD, at the behest of the mayor and the army, moved into the streets of Harlem. What an awful situation, folks. That would have been, you imagine, a hot August night in 1943 and dealing with riots like that. Anyway, there you go. And this was in the middle of World War II. So not fun, not good, an awful kind of blight on history, but something that should not be forgotten whatsoever. All right, so our next segment, and I don't have any cool transition, scenes for this one yet, is paranormal prepping. And that was, I don't remember who came up with that name, but thank you. The names have settled in now, and I'm quite happy with where they've turned out. Paranormal prepping, stories from the paranormal side, just because I like odd, strange paranormal stories once in a while. And this one is Grandpa on Ice. And you may have heard this story before. I don't know if you have. I had one other time, but it came back around because I believe it was the 30th anniversary of this incident recently. And this comes from popularmechanics.com. This body was found preserved on a block of ice in a Colorado shed. It had been there for 30 years. This is a story about do-it-yourself cryonics. Hang in there. And it's not about Walt Disney or Ted Williams. Here we go. Affectionately known as Grandpa Brado, this dude named Morstel spent much of the last 3 decades packed in dry ice inside a tough shed in a small town in Colorado, some 4,700 miles away from his home. Imagine that. Dry ice, tough shed. Doesn't sound like the best way to be preserved, does it? So Grandpa Brado's indefinite suspension serves as what is surely both a lesson and a milestone, the longest endeavor at amateur human cryopreservation. If you guys haven't heard this before, it's a pretty interesting story. The story begins in 1980. So I guess it's been longer than 30 years. I guess it has now been, well, anyway, here we go. Grandpa Brado's free-willing grandson, Try, who left Norway for Nederland, Colorado. Now, here was kind of a funny part that I missed the first time I prepped this story. He was a devotee of survivalism, cloning, ice bathing, and cryonics with a touch of libertarian anarchy. Sounds like he'd fit right in with our community. He stayed in the United States, refusing to apply for a visa. Bad idea, dude. When his grandfather died 9 years later, he reportedly had him moved to a cryonics facility in California called TransTime. Just going to let that sit there. Grandpa Brado would wind up spending about 4 years in liquid nitrogen there. But because he had plans to build his own homemade cryo facility, this story gets better and better by the minute. He relocated his late grandfather to his small town in Colorado in 1993, packing him inside a huge box filled with hundreds of pounds of dry ice inside a tough shed for the time being. So this dude was an amateur cryonics. I don't know what cryo engineer. I don't know. Anyway, so he basically said, hey, send me Grampy's body. I'm going to put him in a box. I'm going to put him in an old freezer. I'm going to fill him full of dry ice. They didn't even pump his veins or anything full of liquid nitrogen. There's no way the dude's body is in any good shape at this point. But he's like, screw it. I'm going to do it. So you stuff him in a tough shed, and eventually, guess what happens? The dude gets evicted or deported, after a strange chain of events that would lead to his deportation in the U.S. in 1994. Grandpa Brado's fate was in limbo. The town in Colorado ordered that his body be removed and added a new provision to its municipal code that outlawed the keeping of frozen human bodies. However, they had to admit that since he was a grandfather, the grandfather was grandfathered in simply because he existed in the town before they passed the law. So what did they do? In great capitalist fashion, in 2002, the town of Nederland was thinking of ways to boost tourism. So it decided to capitalize on its most famous resident and launched a festival called, for lack of a better term, Frozen Dead Guy Days. The festival included coffin races, a blue ball, I don't know what the blue ball is anyway, champagne tours of the Tough Shed, polar plunges, a parade, and more. But 20 years later, they had outgrown the facility. So the owner of the Stanley Hotel in nearby Estes Park. So if you don't know what the Stanley Hotel is, it is it is the hotel that the movie The Shining was either based on or filmed at. Considering it's inspired Stephen King's horror movie. Yeah. So anyway, this dude is still frozen in, I believe it's basically a freezer, and they continuously pack him. I don't know where the money has come from over these 30 plus years. They keep packing him with dry ice. The dude has been frozen for over 30 years, and it is definitely the longest DIY cryonics project in North American history. So I hope you enjoy. Oh, geez. What a fun story that was. I love taking a stroll down paranormal prepping lane. Beth Emily says, cool, I've been to Nederland, Colorado, and totally believe it. I haven't, and I also totally believe it. So, anyway, if you guys have any good stories about paranormal prepping or that sort of thing, send them my way.
He's dead. They're all dead. Everyone. You and I are in a dead world. And I'm glad it's dead. Honky tonk of a world.
Coming up next, Workshop Wasteland. And this is where we take a look at dystopian, apocalyptic, and all things pop culture. And I got a few for you tonight. The news itself has been kind of quiet. I got to go back here for a second. Byron Roberts says, got to move Grandpa to get a frozen pizza. Yep, ain't that the truth? We just watched a movie last night called The Gentleman, a Guy Ritchie film, and it was awesome. Dude goes in to get some Wagyu steaks, and there's a dead body in his freezer. If you haven't seen that movie, it's like 5 years old. I don't know how I missed it, but it's great. Anyway, so 2 quick stories. Number 1, Silo. If you haven't watched it on Apple TV, I think Apple TV, maybe. No, I don't know. It's either Apple TV or Amazon Prime. Either way, it's worth watching. They just announced that season 2 is coming up in November. Great. 28 years later, yep, they're making it. It's supposed to be a trilogy. It has wrapped filming already, the first film. Danny Boyle directed, and the original writer came back, but there you go. So it's been wrapped. It's supposed to be released in June of 2025. I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic because a lot of these legacy sequels, well, you know where they go. So anyway, however, during my time away, during my sojourn to the East Coast and back, my wife and I got quite a bit of quiet time together. We rented 2 different Airbnbs. The first Airbnb, our girls stayed with us, and the second one, they stayed with with their grandparents. And so we got to watch a lot of movies, a few movies on the trip. First one, I watched this one on the plane heading out, was called Arcadian, and it is a post-collapse movie with Nicolas Cage. He does a great job in it. It has a 78 on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm just going to give you like a 1-line review of each of these movies I watched, and then I'm going to give you a breakdown in future episodes of one movie at a time. I'd say it was similar to Into the Forest. If you haven't seen that, it has, I can't even remember who they are. Fairly well-known female actresses. It's a good movie where 2 sisters are living in a house post-collapse. Their dad has since long passed, and the house is falling apart, and they're trying to keep it together. Good movie. And then it's also very similar to It Comes at Night. And that came out a few years ago. That had Joel Edgerton in it. So I give it 7 out of 10. It was good. Wasn't great. It was definitely something to watch to pass the time during a plane ride. Number 2, A Quiet Place, Day 1. Becky and I went to the theater to see that. It's got an 87 on Rotten Tomatoes. I give it an 8 out of 10. I would say it's my second favorite out of the 3 Quiet Place films. And I would say it's an optimistic version of The Road. If you've seen The Road, you know it's basically just a couple of people walking down the street or down the road in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Very similar in The Quiet Place, except it also involves pizza and a few other things, and a cat that is just so cute. Loved the film. I really, really liked it. I think I liked it quite a bit more than Becky, actually. It's a small film that takes place in New York City, if that makes sense. One Step Closer says all parents long for a quiet place. Yes, they do. Yeah. Try going to the bathroom. Are you done yet, Mom? Now, the next one, actually, you know what? The next one I saw was The End We Start From. a British film. So already that's one check in the right direction for me because I love Brit films. It is an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It is one of the few it's an environmental apocalypse. Without giving too much away, I won't, but a rain starts in Great Britain and it doesn't stop for a long time. Not quite Noah biblical flooding levels, but pretty damn bad. The lady's pregnant and it turns into an apocalyptic, I want to call it a road trip film. It's more of a walking along the road, but it is one of the first apocalyptic films told from a female point of view, and a really good female point of view. I really, really like the movie a lot, actually. Not everybody might. If you've ever seen the film Cargo with Martin Freeman in it, it's an Australian zombie film. The father is basically trying to find someone to look after his child as he's slowly turning into a zombie. And it's very similar to that. I loved it. This was just a great movie. It would have been probably a 9.5 if it weren't for the ending. I'm not going to ruin it. And it's not bad. I didn't like the ending. Simple as that. There you go. And the husband is useless, but not in a I'm female, hear me roar kind of way. Just an absolute useless twat. That's what I thought. He just couldn't be a man in it. And through no fault of her own, it was just who he was. But the movie was great. If you're looking for a slow burn, now it was right up my alley. It may not be up your alley, but I loved it. 8.5 out of 10. And then we watched Boy Kills World, not Boy Meets World, but Boy Kills World. 58% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is a dystopian hard R, similar to Hunger Games with a bit of Kill Bill. And if you've seen the movie Upgrade and other Kung Fu revenge films, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. It has the dude in it that plays Pennywise. He's mute. He can't speak. So his internal voice is done by, the guy who does Archer, if you've seen that cartoon. Anyway, okay movie. Cliche and new and fresh and all of, I don't know. Anyway, takes place in a dystopian future. Fun movie if you're looking for a ton of violence and some real mind twists at the end. There you go. All right. Moving right along. So next we have coming up Cookbook of the Collapse. Now, I actually have 2 segments from Thesia. I'm not going to play them both tonight, but she's been great at bringing segments along. She promised once a month, and she's been delivering once a month. So thank you, Thesia. And yeah, so this will be an enjoyment. Just going to check back real quick to the comments here, and I see Chuck Peoples. Tim, how are things? Great to see you, brother. I am back from a 3-week sojourn to the East Coast, and it's good to be back. I'm glad to see everybody in here. So with that, let's bring up, this is a good one. Let's bring her up here full screen for you guys, and we'll have some fun with it.
Hi, I'm Thesia Ellis, and welcome to Grandma's Homestead.
And as soon as I get ready to play it, an ad starts, even though I pre-played the video, and I don't think poor Thesia's channel is even monetized yet. Yet there is an ad. So in just a second, we are going to play Cookbook from the Collapse. And I see my other nephew in here now, Nathan Howard. Good to see you, buddy. Really good to see you. I hope you enjoyed the Toolman Tim hat I sent out to you. So with that, guys, let's see. If you don't know about this segment, Cookbook of the Collapse is where we cook out of our pantry. This one is Spam mac and cheese, which, if I were hungry, would make me salivate at the moment. So here we go with Thesia.
Grandma's Homestead. All right, today we're going to do something that I almost never do. We are going to cook from a box. But my whole series is about cooking from your pantry, and my theory on it, if you're cooking from your pantry, you're basically cooking with things that are shelf stable. All right, our water's going. Let's get our macaroni in here. Give it a good stir. We got our timer set for 10 minutes. And we're going to let that go. All right. The timer is off. It's time to strain it or drain it. Okay, now we're going to drain it. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick I've learned. We've got the pan here. It's not been heated. We're just going to throw it in the bottom of the pan. The heat is off. I guess you can put it on low if you want it. Now we're going to take the noodles and pour them back onto it. This will heat up the the meat. Now we're going to squeeze this gooey stuff in here. Now I'm going to stir it all in. Like I said, this is strictly from the pantry. The cheese is already done up for you. The macaroni, you got to heat up and stuff. Oh, and why do I worry about that? What if you get into a prolonged time where you can't use electricity and you don't have a refrigerator to put cheese in, or just any way to keep anything cold or whatever? Now we've got a stove that runs on propane, and so I can cook on it. I guess I'd have to figure out how to start it because it does have a pilot light and stuff, you know, the electronic stuff. But that's it, guys. Dinner's ready. And it's not great yummy, but that's not half bad either. So this was a quick one this evening, but that's good too. But like I was saying, my whole focus of these videos is to teach you how to come up with some ideas on how to cook with things from just your pantry. Like I said, we'd like to do Spam here, and I like to make homemade macaroni and cheese. I don't do any box stuff with that either, but we got that from the box. In fact, Kenzie's already come through and already scooped her up a big old bowl full of it and eating it. So obviously your kids will like it. And like I said, that one with the chicken is, you can use canned chicken and buffalo sauce, some sort of hot sauce and stuff, and mix that in, and that would be good. Of course, obviously, this is not from the pantry, but if you have hamburger meat or bacon or anything like that, you can add to it. That's good too. But I was just going to show you something from the pantry. So I am looking for some more recipes. Tim Cook has started with, some of you guys have sent some extra recipes to him for the book, Cookbook of the Collapse. I'm getting those together. It's going to be a while, but send them to either Tim at his email address or to myself at theciaellis@gmail.com, theciaellis@gmail.com. And what I'm looking for is stuff strictly from the pantry. Also, somewhere down the road, I would like to learn how to cook with food that you've already freeze-dried and how to reconstitute and make those into a wonderful meal, also to the best of our ability, without fresh eggs, without fresh cheese, without fresh milk and meat and all that other stuff. And so that, like we said, there's a cookbook of the collapse. And what I'm going to do is we're going to get these cookbooks together and get these recipes together and get a cookbook put together somewhere down the road. So send it to us. Give me some ideas. Thank you very much. God bless. I'll see you next time.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I love Thecia. She has an infectious energy that is, it's second to none. She is so great. So I will, THECIAELLIS. I didn't catch it, what.com. So if you want to send it to me, guys, I can post it for you as well. I can probably look it up for you real quick here. I'll grab it so that I can read it on the show just so you guys have it. So Thecia is awesome. I wanted you to hear that because keep sending the stuff my way for her. Or, if you have any, there it is. So theciaellis@gmail.com. Give me 1 sec. We will get it. I'll copy and paste it into the comments here for you. So there it is. So if you want to send her directly, that would be great. She's doing a great job, and you can tell she just loves doing this. Just loves it. She does everything. She is an independent lady like you wouldn't believe. I first came across Thecia a few years back when she was starting to renovate that trailer of hers. So if you've got something you want to send it in. And yeah, I've passed along the ones you've sent to me so far. So she's doing great. I really appreciate her doing this and her enthusiasm behind it, because it's not something that I had the time or the desire to do. So I'm glad she wants to. That's what community is all about, right, folks? All right.
And you stay in the back room. And you keep your gun handy. Our country is still full of thieving, murdering.
Get ready for I read it on the internet. And this is the segment where we take the top post from our preppers, or one of the top posts this week from Reddit, and we take a look at, sometimes it's a real life story, sometimes it's prepping tips, who knows? But I pull out the most interesting one. And this one's pretty bland, pardon the pun, but no, it's not. It's just something simple that we don't always talk about. And here it is. This comes from user GSHER62. Quick prep for small family. New prepper question. Joined this sub ages ago, but am avoiding thinking about it. Feel free to judge me. I live in a country that has been fighting a war for the last while and recently had a baby. I feel bad, but anyway. There are concerns that tensions might escalate soon, like very, very soon. Off the top of your head, what does a family of 2 adults and a baby in an apartment need? Preferably things I can pull together in the next week. Any advice and guidance would be greatly appreciated. Please be kind. Absolutely be kind. Anybody who shits on them doesn't deserve to call themselves a prepper because, we always, one of my favorite cheesy cliches is the second best time to plant a tree is today, because it's true. If you need to start, you start now. You figure it out. You do what you need to do and you move on. So there's some really great, simple suggestions from folks. Baby food. You can eat less, but your baby can't. That's a really good point that I hadn't thought of. And of course, the further I get removed from having babies in the house, the less I remember of this stuff because, the good Lord puts a blinder in your head so that you don't remember how painful, the child years were. But no, anyway, baby meds as well, Tylenol and saline, things like that. A water and purifier, baby wipes are good for a million things. Guys, we haven't had babies in the house in, the better part of 13 years, and we still buy baby wipes by the case. They are great. Well, we also have 10 furry little babies that are idiots, but they're great for cleaning up messes. They're great for wiping off tables. They're great for wiping your face, for makeup removal. 1,000 things they're good for, and they're just great to have around. This person also says, I like cans of soup and veggies and things that I can eat with or without cooking, and it counts toward your water intake. Fair enough. Soap and disinfectants. Yep, also good. This next user says, if I was worried about a war zone, I'd be worried about moving. You should put together a pair of what we commonly call bug-out bags, preferably graded ones. Not sure what the graded part means there. Somebody wants to chime in, but that may just be a term from a different country. I'm not sure. So each of you would have a small satchel, something you can run with that carries the bare essentials. Great advice for a new prepper. And I like this one the best. This came from Red Yam on the Go. Your diaper bag is basically your baby's bug-out bag. Include changing mat, blanket, diapers, diaper wipes, powdered formula just in case, 3 changes of clothes, drool wipes. If baby is primarily breastfeeding, high-calorie snacks for the mother. If the baby is weaned, jars of baby food. Extra baby supplies, 2 days worth of cloth diapers, soap for washing diapers, water purifier, a way to boil water maybe, a little camp stove, 3 changes of clothes that are a size bigger. That is a great, somebody here's had babies, I promise you that. Baby wash, plastic hangers for drying diapers and clothes. Awesome. Hey, I loved it. What a great little story, or a great little share from the Reddit community. Something, I remember thinking about this exact thing when we went to the hospital and when the babies were born. We were powdered formula through and through. My sister was also. And so we told her ahead of time, we're like, hey, take your own formula, take your own water. It will save your babies, it'll definitely save you from having diarrhea. That's for sure. So you think about it then, but you don't necessarily think about it a few years removed from that. But I enjoyed this story quite a bit. Some real practical tips in there. All right. So what do we got next? Food for thought. This week in the workshop. And so that is a weekly recap. Now I could have I've been gone 3.5 weeks at this point, roughly, I think. And I could have made a list a mile long about this, but I just hit the high points for you, just kind of fill you in on where I've been. But 3 weeks gone, we flew to Nova Scotia, we flew back. It was a good time. My wife and I, we really had a great time. However, the trip was, if you're not on Telegram and you want to join Telegram, the link's in the description tonight. But if you're not in Telegram, you might not have known, but I got sick while I was in Nova Scotia. I have grown up eating all kinds of seafood my entire life. Raw seafood didn't matter. It's never bothered me. We had clams from I was the only one that had the clams from a little roadside seafood place. And the next morning I woke up not feeling very well. And by mid-morning I was, it was not good, throwing up everywhere. So my first experience in my life with food poisoning, the first time I had vomited in 17 years. Imagine that. It was miserable on a vacation. What did I do? I slept and drank lots of fluids and took Gas X pills. That's about all I did. It took me about 4 days to feel normal. It was miserable. Nobody else got sick. Nobody else ate the clams. It was the only thing that I ate that was different from everybody else. Through and through, classic food poisoning for what we had. So anyway, I got a couple of days to eat regularly on the other end. Definitely lost some weight during that time. Anyway, I got to see my grandmother's grave. Marguerite, she passed away about a year and a half ago at 100. If you've heard me mentioning her before, she was just an awesome lady. And I also got to hang out with my best friend, Danny. Now, here's the thing. I've talked about him before. He's actually going to come on the show, he said at some point now. But this is the thing about lifelong friends. We really hadn't talked in the better part of 2 years. We sat down out on his deck. He drank beer. I drank Diet Coke because, well, I was still not feeling great. And we talked for like 4 hours, just like we'd never skipped a beat. And that's how it is. That it's worth having. If you have somebody in your life like that, cherish them. You know, I don't get to see him very often, but every trip I get home, I make one evening for us to sit down and have a chat. I took Becky to the Titanic Graveyard and Museum. That was, it's always, well, the museum is a really fun time. The graveyard is, yeah, it's neat to see. Let's put it that way. We went to Banff for a day during, just before the wildfire went through Jasper, which is a few hours north. I've discovered that, walking into lakes in freshwater nowadays on all those rocks, I just don't enjoy it anymore. So I ordered myself a pair of little thin water shoes. We're going to try them out. When I was a kid, I would run in over those rocks and gravel like there was no tomorrow. And now I'm just like, oh, it hurts. It hurts us so bad. While I was there, though, it was pretty cool. I saw a dude sitting on the side of the beach painting the backdrop that was behind us. It was really nice. I chatted with him a bit. I shared his stuff on social media. I also saw an inflatable canoe. If you haven't seen one of those, it's a breakdown frame with an inflatable skin, weighs about 20 pounds and fits into a really big backpack. If you haven't seen one, might be interested in looking into it. We had extreme heat for the entire week. My family was out here. It sucked, especially for them. Definitely the hottest days they've ever experienced in their life. But again, no humidity. I did some property management stuff. I got a full day booked tomorrow. But tub faucet, broken switches, bathroom fan, all at the 12 unit. Then we stayed at that hotel, like I told you. No hot water. Elevator broke down. So the first night we get there, my sister's bed in the other room. We got two adjacent beds. Hers was dirty. They needed to clean it, change it before they could go into the room. Yeah, we shouldn't have stayed there. And then a broke down elevator. I felt awfully bad for some old couples I saw. And I couldn't imagine if you were on the third floor with a wheelchair. It just was, and they just didn't care. And then no hot water for 14 hours. So yeah, it was not very fun. Then I went to the daycare this week and I got a ton of coat hooks and shelves hung over the last couple of days. So that's done. And then I did 2 review videos this week. One that came out yesterday, which is a DeWalt battery powered coffee maker from Malif. And tomorrow is a really cool foldable solar panel that you'll get to check out. So that's coming tomorrow. Next, what do we got? Food for thought. This is a new article, a new segment that I guess was kind of inspired by Chris Dixon. And this is just where I bring up a random topic to discuss, something in the way of preparedness. So here we are again. This one is food for thought. It's a random topic to cover. And tonight we're going to talk a bit about the wildfires in general. And if you guys hadn't followed, we had a really bad wildfire here in Jasper, one of the national parks, one of the 2 really pretty communities that are in the mountains. It's not good. Anyway, so we were in Banff, and if you go just a little bit further in the Rockies north, you come to Jasper. I've never been there, but that's where my daughter and son-in-law got engaged a week and a half ago. A couple of days later, a wildfire comes through, ravages the place, and destroys about 30% of the community. A real mess of a job. So anyway, somebody mentioned in the Telegram group a couple of days ago about their thoughts, and they thought it had been mentioned in our group, about how hazardous materials couldn't be traveled through a wildfire at-risk area. And it made sense. And so we shared some thoughts, and I took some notes. And so number one, during an active wildfire, there's a really good chance that you're going to lose your ingress or egress to somewhere. So your main highways are going to get cut off, which means even if they wanted to deliver you fuel, you ain't getting none, number one. Number two, hazardous material companies quite often won't deliver, even if there's a risk of wildfire in a lot of cases, which means, again, no fuel. Also, during wildfires, if the roads are clear, the power can go out, which also means no fuel. Are you starting to see the domino effect here? So you lose power, Your gas station's full of gas, but they can't get it out of the ground because, again, no power. All three of those lead to the need to have extra fuel on hand, to take extra fuel with you when you bug out, and to keep your vehicle at least half full at all times. There was a story that came out of this. They were told you need to go to British Columbia. I'm not exactly sure why they sent them that way. They would have been better off to send them east into Edson or somewhere like that, but they sent them into BC. And when they got to BC, BC's like, sorry, no room in the inn. You got to leave. And so everybody who evacuated ended up having to spend 14 to 16 hours on the road. So, yeah. Can you imagine hopping in your vehicle and having 1/8 of a tank of gas because your husband or wife just came home and thought, meh, we don't need to fill it up today? Not a good thing. So people had to go a long way to evacuate. A tip I saw in another post I was on said if you have gas storage, so that could be fuel tanks, diesel tanks, propane tanks, clear back all brush and combustibles from there, about a 10-meter, 30-foot radius. So beat down all the dry grass. Don't let any dry grass be growing up around it. Do everything you can to beat back the combustibles before you have to leave. When you're traveling, visibility can be really bad. It can be just so-so. It can kind of look like dusk, although some of the stuff I saw from Fort McMurray a few years back, it looked like hell on earth. Breathing is really bad. Solar panel output goes down to almost zero. However, if you're not near the fires, one good benefit is that it tends to be a fair bit cooler because the smoke blocks out a lot of the UV rays. Not good, just one of those things. So I brought up this from Technical Safety BC, and they just said a few things if you're on evacuation alert. And I thought this was kind of cool to hear. Said if you're on evacuation alert, unplug non-essential electrical appliances, move portable propane cylinders away from house or structure to an area where fire impact will be minimal. Now, I want to throw something out there because I store 12 5-gallon cans of gasoline in my workshop. I'm probably going to take 4 or 5 of them with me if I go. I don't know what I would do. I guess I would just leave them in there. Maybe leave. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Maybe give them to neighbors, I guess, other people who are bugging out. Yeah, that's probably what I would do because I wouldn't want to leave that behind because that could become a really big hazard for, emergency workers. So just a thought anyway. And if you guys have thoughts on that, I'd like to hear it too. It says turn off valves and power knobs on appliances and systems, shut off the water leading to hot water pipes. If you have propane storage, cut back vegetation. But they said if your natural gas is supplied, don't shut it off. If you receive an evacuation order, they'll turn it off at the main valve. Okay. Rather interesting. Just a few little thoughts there. There was a couple more, but we're going to brush by them for lack of time. But so anyway, that's my thoughts on wildfires. It's been a scary time here for a lot of folks. The mayor of Jasper lost his family home of 70 years. They kept all the main infrastructure, but beyond that, it was a mess, guys. Through government mismanagement, through forests not being dealt with properly, through, I believe 90% of the woods being decimated by some beetle, and then no selective burning or cutting. There were so many things they could have done. And now all of a sudden they're like, hey, let's fund a fire suppression system around the entire city. So they want to put in a sprinkler system around the town. And I'm like, too little, too late now, isn't it? It's kind of sad, but it's a shitty situation. I feel bad for the folks there. I don't know where they're going to go from that, but yeah. So that's my thoughts on the wildfire this week, guys. And hopefully we don't have to see any more of those this year. It's been up until this point, it had been a pretty good wildfire season. All right. So next and the final segment of the day.
It's the apocalypse. End of days. The judgment day. The end of the world, my friend.
Let's dig into community mailbag. All right, and if you wonder what the community mailbag is, well, that's where I normally will reach into the mailbag of what I've received from the community over the last few weeks, share a lot of it, share the polls I've run on the YouTube community page. And I have had a metric shit ton of it, guys. I could share a lot with you, but tonight I'm going to change it up just a little bit. Normally this segment is where I share all the feedback that I get from the community, but I'm going to share a few things, some things with my incredible community, and I'm excited about it. So yeah, let's dive into it, I guess. And I'm going to need some feedback on a couple things from you folks. And it doesn't mean you have to give it to me now, but down the road, I'd like to hear from you. But if you've ever heard me talk on entrepreneurship over the years, there are three things that I really have espoused as principles to build on. And the first is when you're first getting started, I talk about the spaghetti method. And that is where you try all kinds of things. You throw a bunch of things at the wall and you see what sticks. The thing that sticks, you do more of it. The thing that doesn't, you don't do any of it. So that's important. And then number two, as businesses grow, we start doing the things that make us the most money and take the least amount of time. And that's important as well. You guys saw me do that earlier last year when I sold All Seasons Maintenance. And then third, you invest your time and energy into the things that make you the money and give you the biggest reward. And that has been how Becky and I have grown our businesses to the point that we have. That's why I sold All Seasons Maintenance last year. And it's an absolute blessing to sit down with those guys last night and have a chat with them and have a really good relationship, and to see, they brought me some new hats with their new logo. They're still calling it All Seasons Maintenance. It's a great logo. They're making money hand over fist. I'm proud as hell at them, but I just couldn't do it all, right? So I just gave up one more property that I manage at the end of July, and I give it to the guys who are running All Seasons Maintenance. But I realize in some instances, I haven't been taking my own advice. So this is not a bad announcement or anything, but I just want to share with you guys. So number one, I said, you need to invest the most time and the most energy into the thing that makes you the most money and gives you the biggest reward. As you guys know, the absolute biggest investment for us right now is the daycare. It is making more money than all three other, well, I'll share something with you here, not numbers, but just to let you know. So my 4 priorities on the run of a week is property management, content creation, daycare, and family time. Those are the 4. And recently, I have been doing 1 day of property management, 3 days of content creation, 1 day of daycare, and 2 days of family time. And until somebody can figure out a way to find more days in the run of a week, that's what I'm stuck with, 7 days. The family time is 2 days of non-negotiables. So here's the thing. The daycare is making us the most money by a mile. We have a plan of being retired, I guess, by 2029. By the time Becky turns 50, I guess I can say that. I hope I can say that. That's our plan, is to, and when I say retired, it doesn't mean we're not going to be doing things. It just means that we're going to be physically removed from the businesses and have enough money to live off of for the rest of our lives. That's our goal. So I've looked at my content creation and I'm spending a ton of time on a few things that aren't bringing in the return. That doesn't mean that I'm ending anything, but I want to be upfront with you guys about what I'm doing and what I'm going to do. So number one, my review videos are by far my biggest subscriber grower, my biggest ad revenue generator, and my biggest view count increaser that you're ever going to find. I just got a notification tonight that I just hit 2.7 million views on my channel, and I just hit 17,000 subscribers, which is great. So here's the thing. I got to take my own advice just a little bit. So I'm moving from 3 days of content creation to 2 days of content creation. And I'm moving from 1 day at the daycare to 2 days at the daycare. So what does that mean? Well, not a whole hell of a lot in the grand scheme of things. But first off, I have to take my own advice, and I have to do more of what's making me money, more of things I love too, of course. And that means I'm doubling down on review videos. So going forward, I'm going to be doing twice weekly, Wednesday and Friday reviews. Simple as that. And they're going to be good reviews. I have seen a marked increase in Amazon affiliate. Amazon influencer blew up this month big time. I'm doing really good with direct affiliate marketing. And so I love that. So you're going to start seeing 2 review videos a week. But in order to do that, Workshop Radio isn't going anywhere. Thursday, This Week in Prepping, has become a huge hit, and I love it. And it's going to continue as normal. but I'm going to eliminate the Sunday show going forward, at least until the late fall. We'll see where things go, because if you haven't heard, we're also expanding the brand new daycare. So I'm just going to share kind of from the hip about this, but we are doubling the size. We're at full capacity in the downstairs daycare that we just launched in March, and we're taking over the second floor, which means tons more renos, a bunch of really cool things happening there, double the amount of kids, double our income. It's friggin' amazing, guys. It's unbelievable what you can do when you put work into a business. So that means I'm going to move to 2 review videos a week instead of 1. That means Thursday live stream is staying there, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure every Thursday I do it live from this studio. But that means no Sunday show for a while. And the Sunday show has been hit and miss for a bit. I've been gradually paring things back, but the Thursday show is staying here. The book club is going on permanent hiatus for the time being. Again, if you want to know the breakdown, if anybody does, this is how, this is insider baseball, but this is exactly what I have preached for many, many years to all of you folks out there, is do more of what makes you money. And so I have to do that. So the breakdown really is that review videos bring in 95% of views, subs, and revenue. The podcast is a total labor of love, which I love doing. But if you include the ad revenue, subscribers, views, listens, patch of the month, and Patreon, in-person events, it might bring in 10% of the revenue, but it is taking up more than half of my time. So I had to make a decision. And so that's where I'm at. It's not a bad thing. This 3 weeks of vacation time has really given me clarity. As you know, I've cut back on speaking engagements for the next year or so, because my girls, I only have 4 years left with them. They're starting their grade 9 year when they get back this year. And I want to be able to take them to all their volleyball and basketball events. I love it. I want to be there for them like my dad was for me. So that means those 2 days on the weekend are non-negotiables going forward. Patreon's going to continue. But what I'm going to start doing, and you're going to see a bit of an overhaul of the YouTube channel, it's going to become very, very specific toward generators, backup power, and review videos, because if you want to grow something to be massive, it really has to be specific. You have to niche on something, and that's okay. So that means some of the stuff is going to end up moving over to my alternative channel, and some of the new stuff going forward will either be Patreon only exclusives, or they'll go to the alternative channel. And it means that I'm not going to, when I get inspired to make something that doesn't fit this channel, it's going to go to the alternative channel, if that makes sense. So things like Delinquents Gully, things like the MRE videos I do with Alice, that kind of stuff is going to go over to the alternative channel as time permits. And finally, the last thing is I'm a bit on the fence about the Patch of the Month Club. And this is where I want your feedback. It hasn't turned into the thing that I wanted it to turn into. I have around 50 subscribers. I love it. I could continue it forever. It's not something that I have ever come to hate or despise or anything. I love doing it, but it's just barely breaking even. And for the amount of time that goes into it and the travel and that sort of thing, it's just one of those things. I'm starting to wonder if folks out there would rather I just move it to, say, a Patreon or an exclusive content kind of thing. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I want some feedback from you guys on a few of these things. And I know I'm throwing a shit ton of stuff out there at you, and I apologize for that. But this is all stuff that has been coming for a while. I've been running it past some of my good friends, not as many as I should. I took a 14-hour road trip to Montana and back from Edmonton the other day, and I did a ton of talking into my microphone, recording thoughts, and I kept paring them down, and I came back to this and I talked to Becky about it. So that's where we're at right now. You're going to get more review videos. You're going to get one hell of a Thursday live stream, which I love doing. I know there's tons of people that love the interview shows. I love the interview shows. And down the road, when we step away from the daycare more, I will do a shit ton of interview shows. And I'm not giving up on it, but I have to be realistic. There's only 7 days in the week, and I need to do what I have told everybody else out there. Do more of what brings the money in. And we have built an incredible community here, and I'm not going anywhere, but if I want to make sure that I keep building the way I've stated that I want to build, that's what I have to do. So I hope you guys dig it. I hope you guys are cool with it. If you have any suggestions for me, I'd love to hear them. If you're like, hey, I know a way that you can find an extra day in the week, send that to me as well. I'll make it work. But no, anyway, it's great. I love it. The YouTube channel, if you didn't see this last month, and that has a lot to do with some of the focus on the videos I put out, I actually had the very first 1,000 plus subscriber increase in 1 month ever. Almost double. Revenue was up, subscribers were up. It's what I love. I love doing review videos. It's my favorite thing. And so you're going to see more of them. And exclusive interviews would be great on Patreon, Byron. I have a whole, as you guys know, there is a whole herd of exclusive interviews backed up on this computer and on my phone that are coming out in Patreon. I love doing them. It's a great place to put them. So just let me know what you think. It doesn't mean I'm doing away with Patch of the Month Club or anything like that, but I just wanted to know, because I've had a few people that have reached out and they're like, I subscribe to the Patch of the Month because I want to support you. But really, it's just something to have or something that comes in the mail that I really have no use for. And if that's kind of how some people are feeling, then I'm cool with that. I don't mind it at all. We could move it to just an exclusive content. I don't know what it is, and I don't know where it ends up. I'm going to keep pushing this forward. The Busy Bees daycare has become huge. I now have my son-in-law here who's helping me with property management. That has become huge. Curtis, you're awesome. I love you. He is going to probably be taking over more and more and more of the property management, which will free up a little bit more time for me. So there it is, folks. That's what I wanted to let you know. So going forward, you're going to see the book clubs on permanent hiatus for now. Sunday night live streams not happening for the foreseeable future. Thursday is locked in stone this week in prepping. I love it. 2 review videos a week, and we'll go from there. So I hope you appreciate that, guys. It's been great chatting with you tonight. Before I forget, number one, tonight is the deadline for very inexpensive SRF tickets. If you haven't got them yet, they're under $50. I've never seen them this cheap. I hate that. So get over there and pick some up. I probably should have put my affiliate link in the description tonight, but I did not. So it doesn't matter, but I'd love to see you there because that's the only event I'm going to this fall is SRF. And to throw that out there, we're going to be doing, we're going to be down the week before SRF. It's going to be great. I can't wait to sit and anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see everybody. We're going to do some work days at Delinquent's Gully. I can't wait to have, you're open to come anytime or no time whatsoever, but it's going to be a good time. And Byron Roberts says patch of the month could be limited to quarterly. I really like that. And maybe I could do a bigger patch. I don't know. And Ed Celio says, my honest take, how much of this is you already know the answers, but you want your listeners to validate before you act? By the way, everything you said makes sense. Appreciate it. And it's not even that I'm looking for validation because it's all done, but I definitely like feedback. I want to hear that. The main one is the patch of the month, because that's one that I haven't decided on. Everything else I already told you was set in stone. And I just wanted to be polite about how I shared it. But I love you guys. It's great to be back. I can't wait to see you every Thursday. I love it. This show here alone, and it's no slam at all, 5 or 6 hours of prep time, which is great. I love it. It's so much fun. It's one of my favorite things to do. I can do 2 review videos in that time. And so that's why Sunday is what it is. And there'll be some random spur of the moment. Anyway, so that's where it's at. And I appreciate you. Give me the feedback wherever you want. And yeah, we'll see you right away. So as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.